value.
Right. We are not
We can leverage any monetary crises to get things that we want. Like Chester, like what?
I would like to.
Your ship has gone up.
Right.
Did you say green?
Sounds like this is a party.
Viral.
Yeah, we're only going viral for the first section. Oh boy.
Everyone. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 4:02 on Wednesday, April 16th. Let's take roll call. Terry Pazer.
Here.
Paul Knopf.
Here.
Julie Georgie. Here. Chris Merritt. Here. Roger Rhodes.
Here.
Sue Summers.
Sue Summers is here. I'm sure about
Oh, you're in here as well. Do we have any public comment? Okay, then moving on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Thank you, Christy. A second? Second. Thank you, Julie. And any discussion?
No, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that I put a voicemail in the folder for you guys to listen to from a Portage resident, which was fantastic. Olga shared a really nice message as well. And then I got from the Westchester director who reached out today, thanking us for a wonderful event we had on Saturday. Her daughters took part in the art that was going on throughout the building. And she said the staff were very friendly, welcoming. The program was outstanding. So she took time to reach out and say she appreciated it. So we appreciate that feedback. So that's what
Yeah, thanks for that voice message. I listened to it. It was really nice.
Yeah.
So she's willing to come and help too. So
Yeah.
and support.
So if you have like cool events like that, like I did, wasn't on the, you hadn't been on the website to notice that.
Sure.
I'd love to like attend something like that.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
That would be a nice blast.
Yeah.
you know, if it's something out of the ordinary.
Sure.
Great
Yeah,
idea.
the next big one is going to be our end of summer or our start of summer celebration. We're going to have a kickoff up in Portage. And that'll be kind of a great one. I think it's also not an invite for everybody. It's the very end of May. It's like May 3rd.
Are you saying winter is leaving?
We promise it is May 30th.
It's not going quietly.
No. Okay, anything else with the financial?
No, everything was in order for it, but we'll talk about it.
And then anything that didn't?
No, all good.
Okay, great. So, since we, can we say all in favor? Single out. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, items for individual consideration, Portage, Ricky, and Vanderbilt.
So our adjuster is still working on the canopy. They do feel like we have a good pace. I've talked twice since our last board meeting, so communication has certainly improved, which is good. They're working out for us. As for the construction, fencing went up around the front of the canopy. As of the 15th, they've begun basic demolition. So they're starting with their sledgehammers and the like, getting off the metal paneling safely. They're putting up some, as they move forward with the fence, as they start to demo a little bit further, they'll put up additional safety barriers, some plywood and whatnot to keep debris out. They've officially begun, which is excellent. The roofing project will be happening currently. It's going to start on the library garden side and work its way around the building. The point of doing it on the garden side is that so it's ready for our summer kickoff party. We don't want it to be in demo there. So you'll begin to see them working on that. And they expect the timeline right now to be mid-July for completion. So it's going to be fairly quickly. So we've met with their electrical workers, their carpentry guys, and we're just kind of helping them out as we can. Other than that, it's starting to move along well.
Okay, moving on to Patron Code of Conduct Policy Review.
Yeah, so we're committed to reviewing policies every year. We'd like to do this for all of our major policies. Our process is to make notes on the policies throughout the year, like we do with our HR manual. It makes it a lot easier when we get to our scheduled date to work on it. Most policies have some sort of updates that we've noticed that we've needed, but this time we're not requesting any changes in this public policy. We feel it's really clarified a lot of the issues that we have experienced in the past, help staff handle some of the more challenging interactions. So this is really more of our process going through. We want it to be every year, but we feel very comfortable with it. So.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Quick question. I know it's the code of conduct. I don't really know if it's in here or not, but does it address like the issue we ran into previously with the service animal? Okay.
Yep.
And we feel that's nice and clear and.
Yeah, the truth is it's as clear as it can.
As it can, yeah, right.
I feel very comfortable with it at this point.
And depending on the individual, it could, be as difficult or understanding as they wish to be.
What I'll say is that goes for almost every line of our nature. They like to test the fences a little bit now. So.
It is in there. And the policy statement on the service animals is very brief. What we've tried to expand on is our training as much as we can to help staff get as comfortable as possible with it. But the way we handle it is. No, thank you.
Yes, we're not going viral.
I was just gonna say, I think this is great, and I know the amount of work that goes into something like this, but just seems like every step of the way of my involvement here, it's gotten better. I was gonna point out, remember the rat's nest paper notices at the front door, talk about the first thing the public sees, and it's like, yeah, it's like a trader post, it would consider terrible. And so this is just another step in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you.
So, tell me, why is on the agenda?
We want this to be part of our review process annually. So we're able to say to our staff and our public that we have taken this, we've talked about it, we've made it front and center, and we're making the board aware of what that current patron policy is and any recommendations it might be. We don't want it to fall off like the prior group of policies did, where they don't come out so every 10 years.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion that the board has reviewed this policy and reviews it, so it goes in the minutes?
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes, thank you. Okay, moving on to 3, picture and DVD collection.
Yeah, you good?
Okay, so we've had quite a few positive comments from both staff and patrons about the shelving that we have in Hebron for the picture book shelving, that the space out for everything. And so that's kind of the first part of our plan for that collection. Our longer plan has been that we really want to improve the way that the browsability of those materials so that things are grouped together in categories. And what studies have shown is that this really, it can increase circulation, but what it really does is it helps create library users at a very young age, gives children actual agency. They can actually browse the collection, especially if you pair pictures and categories, things like that. They know how to go and actually find some of the books that they want to read themselves. And that really reinforces how to use a library at a young age and creates lifelong library users. So we really, now that we've got the shelving, we've really started to dive into the weeds a little bit about what it would take to actually go ahead and move forward with that reclassification. And it's pretty intensive. It would require us to touch every record and update every single record. We anticipate that could possibly take years. We probably have to hire more staff and possibly train a cataloger to do this. So we've been looking for some alternatives to make it a little more efficient because we want the public to be able to benefit from this sooner than that. And there is a company called Backstage. They're kind of the specialist company that deals with this sorts of thing. They deal with all of the things in the back end of the library, so they're called Backstage. And we've been talking to them a little bit about this project, and we feel like they could really facilitate this. And it's something that could be well underway this year and possibly be finished this year or even next year, which would mean that by the time next summer reading rolls around, we would have a completely revitalized picture book collection for our children, for our children patrons. And the other collection that we've been looking at was our DVD collection. The DVD collection has been flagging a little bit in the last few years since the pandemic streaming. So it maybe seems like a slightly unlikely collection, but we do think that this is a good time to sort of revitalize that, especially considering that there may be some economic stressors for some of the people in our community. We've noticed that in that case, a lot of times if regulation goes up, especially for something like movies, And we also feel like it's a little bit of a simpler project. So we'd be talking to our DP vendor for help with this one. And so we've gotten a lot of clarity about what this project would look like moving forward. And we'd like to do that. We'd like to move forward. Both of these collections together would represent about 25% of our total collection. So that's a good chunk. It's a quarter of our collections and some of our most used collections. And so we would like approval to coordinate these projects for an amount not to exceed $75,000.
Can you have a motion so then we can discuss it? Can I have a motion to accept the picture and DVD collection category collection projects?
As stated by Olga, with the not to exceed of $75,000.
And we have a second?
A second.
Okay. And then
Can you tell us about when you explained it to Olga and I separately, you did a great job of telling us how it's more like how you shop at a bookstore now and how, can you go more into depth on that?
Yeah, sure. So for example, when you go into Barnes and Nobles or something, they'll have the sections with the sign above where it says there's cooking, there's spirituality, there's sports, there's all the different sections that you can go to. So rather than having everything on the shelf by title, by author right now, which isn't very meaningful to most young children, you would have things together in categories that are really designed for children. So BISAC has BISAC is the name of the shelving scheme that bookstores use, for example. So
Like dinosaurs.
right, and exactly, you have an animals category, and then within animals, you might have pet and jungle animals like lions and tigers, and then you'll have dinosaurs. And so, it makes sense. And you'll have vehicles or things that go, whatever way they're calling it, and you'll have trucks and planes and trains and all that. And so it creates categories that will be familiar and relevant to children. If you'll notice, our staff has instinctively tried to do this already. As you go throughout their system, you'll find that they've tried to create these little pocket collections. Like I think Valpo they have like the county books and the potty training books and the ABC books and everything. So then they've also tried to collect things like characters. And so our staff know that this is how patrons are trying to browse and they're trying to force it. But we want to do that intentionally. And so,
I had this at my previous library. We underwent this process. That's one of the reasons it's been a big dream. And so right now, if you want dinosaur books, you type in dinosaur and the books are spread across A through Z all over the place. And you've got to try to go through and hunt and find them. Kid can't do that. They don't know what's going on.
exactly.
And in my old library, we would have it. I saw kids come in, like, what are you looking for? They're like, drop. And you walk over the truck like, and they just grab a handful and they're the happiest kid who's ever been.
Yeah.
That's what this process can help with. It helps parents with discovery, it helps kids with discovery, and it really helps them find more books. And things just don't go and get hidden and die.
It's not gonna know an author name.
They're not, but they're gonna know Dino.
Right.
Yeah, right. They're very excited by it.
There's some, and go ahead, there's some important value added things I wanted to talk about DVDs too.
So you guys said something about like if the library wanted to undertake them ourselves, it would take hiring some people and time and maybe even a catalog or something like that. Whereas we can hire this company and they can do it for 75. Now, would we still maybe need to train how to then maintain this order?
So, okay, yeah, so to be clear, the main work, and then that whole 75 is not just, is for part, some of that would go to Backstage, some of that would go to Midwest, which is our DVD vendor, because we're working with two different vendors here. But, so there's portions of that, but so the main work that Backstage would do is that they would be going and updating our records, that's the cataloging kind of technical part. And so they have a process where they can kind of mass do that because they already have all of the BISAC in their data, so they just match it. And whereas
It'd
we would
probably
really
like
have
file
to,
transfer for them.
exactly. And so we would have to sit there and look at each one of these up manually. Thousands, and whereas they just have a file transfer that they can do. So, but there is some more technical process to that. There isn't going to be perfect matches, so they will have to do some manual reclasses themselves as well. So that's part of where the cost comes in, and also their own maintaining of that database is part of that cost as well.
And then you'll relabel every book.
And so that's the portion that would need to happen here. And that's the thing that's going to actually take the most time. But again, Backstage, this is what they do. So they would hopefully be able to advise us a little bit and help us manage this project. And I think that would set us up so that as we move through, hopefully, and if this is something we wanted to continue and do with other collections in the future, I'm hopeful that we would, you know, have a better idea of how to move a project like this forward. But with their guidance, especially initially, there's a lot of potential pitfalls of things that I don't know, you know, that sort of thing. So the consulting is part of the value of working with a company like this. And then for the DVDs, one of the things that has been a little tricky sometimes is that patrons don't know what they're getting. Sometimes they something might have content that's surprising to them.
Yeah.
And they've always asked, can't you put the rating on there? And so one of the things that we would do is it's actually a little bit the inverse. The main thing that we would be getting from our DVD vendor is the covers. They would just be sending us, and then we'd go slip them all in. And the record update is minimal. There would be a minor record update that we have to do that to start to do that. So but we would be doing some enhancements. So we would be adding a rating, genres. So it's like the old movie stores used to be. You can come in and browse different genres of what you want. You want horror movie, you want a drama, you want a family movie. And then it would also have the ratings on there. So it's very clear. So if, you know, Johnny grabs something off the shelf that he wants to watch, but it's got an R on it, Mom might say, go put that back, something else out. So it's a way for parents to have a little bit more oversight of the things that their children are checking out, as well as, you know, being more informed in what's in this thing, hopefully, by the rating to know if it's age appropriate or not. So I think that's going to be a big value add. It is something that our patrons have requested a few times. So,
Inga, is the drill down on the DVDs as deep as it would be on books? Like in terms of how categorized it really gets? You know, the drama about Christmas, about
no. So what we're looking at now is about 30 categories, which was more than we thought. But
okay.
But when we started really looking, that's kind of the way our vendor has them broken out, because there isn't a system for DVDs like there is for books.
That's kind of
So we're kind of, we didn't really want to have to reinvent the wheel. So our vendor actually has a pretty nice browsable set of categories, and we started with that.
the old DVD stores.
Yeah, it is. And there's a couple extra categories that we were talking about making. We toyed around with the idea of a forward section, but it probably wouldn't be that big. So we may just include foreign information on the spine, but and then we'll probably do something. I don't know why. We have other patrons who come here just want the Hallmark movies first.
Wow.
Is what so we haven't completely made final decisions.
Put those in the G rating.
There is kids who want to look
Yeah,
at
right.
The kids are taking yeah. So
Ends well.
With smiles.
Nothing really bad's gonna happen.
Do you have to physically adjust the binding spine or tag that goes on each book?
no. Not for the book. Yes, that's the work. That's the main work of the physical portion. But we can print those very easily from our system as long as the system has been updated, which is what we've been paying backstage to do, is to update the records.
So let me ask you this. As long as you're changing the spine, opening each book, changing the label on the spine, why don't you put an RFID in each one?
We had talked about that. Honestly, that was what we were, that would delay this project, I imagine. However, because we'd have to do a lot of shopping around for RFIDs.
They're generic. I mean, it's a commodity that comes on like Scotch tape. You just peel them off like a roll of staples.
True.
30 cents each.
But we'd have to handle them again anyway, because you would have to then input them into a system.
To link the tag to the item.
Right.
Takes more time. It would have to be set up correctly to be able to do that.
So you just have to handle them again. So you have to really choose a system. If you're going to put an RFID tag in, you're not saving yourself any time unless you also choose the system.
And then depending on when we pick that system, we may have wasted the RFID tags that we put out because of what's wrong in the materials as they come.
Right.
And adding new materials in.
I don't disagree with you. That did come up.
Yeah.
What we were thinking about doing is going and looking again into the RFID systems, moving forward with this so that we can get this done and giving us some time. And then if this is something that we continue, then we could go ahead and do that again.
Does this vendor offer RFID conversions?
Probably.
I tell you what, I think you ought to consider
Okay.
doing this as a package deal. If if it's, they're selling for 30 cents a tag, so let's say it's gonna be 50 cents. Once we type it and scan it. But then when people hide books, we can have radios find that they're hidden under the shelf. And I see in Carmel, when they check out books, the kids come and they stack 16 books at a time, and there's no individual handling. All 16 are read. Here's your receipt. Out the door you go. The patrons love it. And I think it would control our inventory. If we're going to spend 75 grand, I suggest you ask these guys, how much more would it cost to add an RFID to these? This is what, 37% of our books, you said?
Just about a quarter of our items.
You said pictures and DVDs.
That includes the DVD. Okay. The picture books themselves is about 90%.
I have those numbers. I just I don't know if I can pull them up here or not, but the largest expense for this, it's the equipment to be able to do the rest. It's the security radios, it's the radios, it's the self-checkouts, it's the text
Yeah,
services.
but you can do that after all the books have got tags in them. You don't have to buy the self-checkout if then your books have tags in them, right?
No,
Can't I take this?
you can, but you still have to have your system selected.
Right. You can't
Which means you have
have
to
these
research the
RFID
subjects and you have to research all the peripherals because you want to get the system that's going to work well with all of those. So you do have to do the work to decide on all that up front.
It's not open systems,
No.
The tags are open.
but
It's like,
yeah,
it's like a
afterwards,
keyboard.
the tag in the database.
Yeah.
That's what I have to have a database to put it in. I could migrate to a different system for sure,
Right.
but I still have to have a system that I can put it in.
Yeah, right.
And so,
Just slam it in anywhere. It's a spreadsheet.
Well,
It's a database.
I don't know about this, but I would encourage you.
you know, that's a good question. Honestly, I could ask, can it be as simple as a spreadsheet?
Placekeeper.
The
Yeah.
total tag cost for the system was $158,000 just for the tags themselves to go
For the
system wide
material cost.
for the material cost. That
Or
was
the tires.
For the
Yeah,
tires.
we're just talking about 25%.
And not even.
And most of the data.
No,
When did we do this? 20.
we do all of our picture.
It's gonna be
all of
a
our-
lot.
Oh,
It's gonna be less.
okay.
Oh, RFIDs are,
This was 11 cents a book. Without the tag price on it. Cost per DVD was higher because they used a lot of labels.
okay.
That
You know what,
tag is-
we're doing research that this guy should be doing, but I.
So,
would
sure,
suggest-
yeah. So would you like us to come back maybe next month with a little more
I
information?
wouldn't hold up on this, but it's kind of like a change order on a public work project.
Sure.
If they come in and say, you know, for an extra $8,000.
So we just add it next.
Yeah, you can bring it back to us as a change order. If it's
Yeah.
something you guys would recommend.
So on the DVDs, I know we have a lot of handling effort with DVDs, setting them out, checking them in and all that stuff. The system will, or this implementation will not modify that in any way.
Not really. The thing that we can do things to hopefully simplify, it's not related to us. This isn't the solution for that. I agree that that's something I want to find solutions for, but the relabeling here, this is really more to fix discovery. Not so much.
And is there a way where we could house the DVDs in a server and then people stream from there?
No.
The rights to the movies.
That's the same, that needs DRM, which the studios do not want.
Closest we're gonna get to Hoopla for that.
And circulating reviews.
And circulating the Roku.
That's why we did that. So, because we very much want that. I would love like an ebook version of streaming services. I think maybe one day we will get there, but that is very dependent on studios being willing to allow us.
They're making too much money streaming.
Right.
The Carmel clip, did they use the wand there, do you know? I can call down, but I'm just, because we couldn't get everybody we talked to, the wands wouldn't work with metal shelving.
No, I don't think, I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
On checkout?
No, checkouts are fine.
Inventory.
The inventory control, the searching of the items, the wands haven't worked yet. That's one of the reasons why I became less enthused by it, because inventory control is one of the main reasons to take Actor. And the prototypes that they showed us was just a wand swiping across and it would check the system and tell you right away. I'm like, that's fantastic. And the libraries we talked to that had it said it only worked if you had wood shelves. because the metal screws up with the radios, and even then it was back. But I was listening.
Anymore too.
Small libraries.
We gotta go carbon fiber.
That means and there is, even with the stacks, if there's, somebody put a gum wrapper in there, it disrupts, but that's not as much. It was those wands.
Who's the medical officer in Star Trek?
McCoy. I was very excited by that one.
I bet Kevin was hot. Only neutral one. Play wasn't, so.
Okay,
So we'll dig in
All right.
and get you more, just a
All right.
suggestion.
And
Yeah.
then we can move
No, I
on.
appreciate it.
Okay, so
So are we doing anything with the music CDs?
We've already genrefied, that was our little test collection. We made the genres a little more straightforward, yes, rather than call numbers for genres, we actually put the genres on.
And I'll say, when we talked to them last week, one of the nice things is starting with the children's section, because it's like a self-sustaining project that if you move on, like if we can afford it, or in the future, we want to do everything we can. And if we don't, you can
Yes.
just stop there.
That's a good
That's a good buffer.
It's a nice buffer.
Same
And
thing
it
with the
doesn't,
DVDs.
yes, it doesn't feel like you didn't finish. So we
Exactly.
really, because I think, Julie, you brought that up, and that was a good, that was a good.
This is gonna be a meaningful change, even if it's the first step or the author's name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a vote to approve the picture and DVD collection categorization proposal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna add another item, library insurance renewal.
Sure. So our current carrier Acuity, as I mentioned before, has declined to quote us for next year for services. Our GIS rep has two alternatives lined up, but only one has provided a quote currently. We had a tour, that was Cincinnati. I provided that in your packet here. Selective Insurance is in the process of finishing their quote. We couldn't do it in time for the meeting. I had a tour of our facilities with them on Friday. We answered a lot of questions. They asked about our policies, kind of what we have in place. We're very happy with everything we had. So we're expecting a positive quote. Our current policy ends on May 3rd. My request would be for the board to approve the lower of the quotes between Cincinnati and Selective. It is going to be more if we're with Cincinnati. We have budgeted for around 70,000 and Cincinnati quotes around 90,000. So it is more. But we're fairly confident Selective is going to come in much more aggressive, and our rep won't tell us that it's going to be the same price as the Acuity, but he thinks it's going to be, much closer to what the Acuity price is for us. So my request would be that we approve the lesser of those two, so that we don't have any lapse in coverage.
Got a motion, thank you, Christy, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any discussion about this?
So we're approving
The
the
lower-
lower of the two, not to exceed 91,000. Yes. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
I guess
passes.
I just had one thought on that is if there are differences.
Coverage is pretty much the
I
same.
would say that we allow you the discretion in choosing.
My preference is definitely the Selective and saving the hopefully $20,000 a year. They are pretty much on par. The one thing, and I do appreciate the Selective rep, they would request that we have a molestation policy, an abuse policy that is separate from what is currently involved. And they're saying that more and more for a lot of their Black Green School clients. And we hadn't been specifically quoted that before, but he said it's a very smart policy to have. So, but I want to get the core policy in place and then we can talk about this. So, yeah, really right. Sorry.
Yeah, really.
Well, but the motion is up to 91,000. So if they come in at 70 and they want another 1,400 for,
We can add it in. We know they're 100%.
Molestation policy.
It's
okay.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Right, wheel the kiosk in here. Okay, ready to go.
Hopefully, where's the intermediate? In the adjournment. Happy Easter, Clay.
Any other items?
Could I speak a little bit?
Yes.
I want to chat with you guys about Senate Bill 1. You read in the paper, first in the paper today, it says that the Legislative Service Agency thinks that Portage County Library System will lose $1.4 million. I got an invite from Baker Tilly. They had a webinar yesterday. Jesse joined me on it. And a couple of days ago, our lieutenant governor said, you need an army of accountants and lawyers to understand this bill. That's basically what Baker Tilly was saying. They're the accountants. The bill was passed at midnight and they're holding a webinar on it at 1 o'clock. And they said, we haven't studied this enough. And all the questions that were raised, most of the answers were, we're going to have to ask the attorneys to review it. They haven't reviewed it yet. So the first message I would give is the $1.4 million loss, so-called loss, I don't think it's a hard number by any means. I don't think they know what's in this bill. And the number came April 3rd, I think. The bill was amended. Right. Language was inserted in the bill up until the last minute. So
Right.
the assumptions that the Legislative Service Agency made are probably not valid or weren't valid at the time. But that said, the staff has to start working on budgeting soon. LSA's estimate for new revenue, new property tax revenue to the Portage County Library System next year is $7,000. And just to put that in perspective, when we approved our bills or claims today, $16,000 was just for NIPSCO. And NIPSCO got a 16% rate increase. So our NIPSCO bill is going to go up by $2,500 a month. Our $7,000 is going to be gone in 90 days, even if we froze every other expense we ever had, including personnel and water rates and what. So I think that we need to start thinking about basically a freeze in our property tax revenue next year as a likely scenario. And what would we do to live within that? And there's meat cleaver ways like, okay, all the employees have to freeze their wages and we'll cut the book budget. And that's how we'll pay for our next. That's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is review what services are we offering our patrons. All of us taxpayers are going to get a tax credit. So in the contract of government services, if you pay less, don't expect the same.
Right.
Right. But responsibly, we should say, in order to give our staff maybe a number 3% raise, we're probably going to have to cut out 3% of our staff in order to make that work. And those are the sorts of realities that I think we all are going to have to face in the next 90 days before we start holding public hearings on our 2026 budget. I think essentially we're looking at reducing staff, reducing hours of service, and some of our programs. And I've been around 10 years or so. We've done this before. It's never fun, but we have to have a conversation about it and start that conversation. And I'd like to maybe reserve some time in each of our agendas to kind of get what's an update on the law, what's the current, well, and no one read the articles, the sentence that was included at the last minute that says blah, 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 so we could just have an update of, just like we're having an update of the Portage roof.
Yeah.
If we could have an update on Senate Bill 1.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to keep that conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And we also included in here the slides from the presentation. There's a whole bunch of other things in here, including in 2029. Right. There's an option for the county council to pass local income taxes. Part of those can go to the libraries.
Yeah.
Which raises questions. Would they give it to the same to both library systems? Would they make library systems have there's all sorts of things that go into this.
Well, I think you back when we were talking about DVDs and books, you made a point, which was, are the things even, or it was actually the magazine from the publications, but are things even being used? If we only have three people checking something out, do we really need a professor?
Mhm.
And I think that's a big part of our conversation too, is what services do we have that are effectively responding to our patrons?
Exactly. And
Because it's far easier to cut it there than it is to cut staff. In some ways,
so
or, you know, right size.
that's going to be, you know, we've got 5 branches. Do all of them need to be open 6 days a week? You know, one branch serves a population 1/10 of the size of Portage.
Yeah, so we have the analysis. So the collection side of things is very easy. We've got that data and we make those changes on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but I was using that paradigm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Projecting it.
We've done the analysis on the door counts. We're finalizing that. So I'm hopeful Mayor and Jim will be able to have a conversation about the hours of the branches. The branch managers are on board and been conducting the analysis themselves. So we've been looking at the foot traffic, we've been looking at the space utilization, and we're looking at the numbers. That's part of my quarterly status updates that they do with me. So we've been keeping an eye on it for this last year, and we're ready. We're just about ready for a recommendation to help pare some of that back and get it to what's appropriate for each of the communities.
And for our patrons too. I mean, you told us, what, 2 months ago was the first time our online circulation exceeded physical circulation. Do we need to have all these hours if our patrons are accessing things electronically?
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear that you were doing this. This will be so much easier if we discuss these things in May and June of this year rather than next June when the tax levy comes in and the check is really only $3,000 more than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to pay.
And hopefully for next month, I'll also have Haley and I are close on the financial plan, what that looks like for us, but all the projections, she's finishing the analysis as much as she can from SB1. And so we'll have that. It's got our investments in it. It's got our expenditures in it. So that'll help hopefully paint a picture of where we are, projecting just on some of the other, all the things that we can forecast a little bit easier.
And it's okay to have 2 scenarios.
Yeah.
Kind of the worst case and best case.
Yes, absolutely.
I think we've got another fly in the ointment too, and that is we've just built all these really nice outdoor spaces, but we really don't know what our burn rate is to maintain them. So we're gonna have to kind of feather that one.
Or start a gardening club.
I will, change.
Thank you. No, I think that's important discussion. Okay, anything else? All righty, then, adjourn this meeting. It's 4:40. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Kevin?
Someone.
Karen, second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be in your report, but I attended an event at Hudlin. And I'll tell you, it's still important because I had a little girl and I think she'll be 3rd grade and she asked me, she was, is it free?